Great. So I'm here to give you an update on what's been going on with Colony. So you may know Colony as this general project for building DAOs and decentralized organizations in general. And before I'm going to dive into what we've been doing in Colony, I want to sort of give the context, so talk briefly about what is a DAO, because even though everyone's talking about them, there's not really one definition that everyone agrees on. Now, you all probably know the DAO, sort of this infamous first DAO or something that claimed the name. So the DAO was a contract in very early Ethereum which attracted a lot of attention, a lot of ether. So you probably know this is $150 million plus investment fund, which then got hacked and caused a hard fork in the network and a lot of drama. What you may not know is that this was not the original plan. So not just the hacking and the hard fork, of course, but it wasn't supposed to be an investment fund. The idea was that this would be run like a firm, a company, right? It was only after it had attracted so much money that this idea took hold that a DAO is some investment fund. It's a big pot of money, and you interact with this contract by sending proposals, voting on them, taking some kind of bureaucratic action, the end result of which is that funds move from A to B. Now, you might think that just sounds like a multi-sig with extra steps, and in some sense it's true, in some sense it's not quite fair, because of course these rules can be really complicated, and you can have voting systems, you can, some people are encoding systems of parliaments and courts and appeals processes, so the rules can be very complex, but the key is that the funds are locked. You take actions, the end result of those actions is funds move. So that's what I mean by with multi-sig with extra steps. And so there are other kinds of DAO I want to talk about. So there might be a lot in this category which are bureaucratic, the ones I've just mentioned. Another kind of DAO that you all know but maybe never thought of as a DAO would be Bitcoin itself. The Bitcoin network is a decentralized organization. It has many different types of actors, all acting according to the hard-coded incentives. It's very powerful, marshalling millions of dollars, setting up, developing hardware, building data centers, and it's pretty much borderline ungovernable, as we've seen. But it's also a DAO. It's just a very different type of animal. So if we talk about a DAO platform, it really is more of a general way to align incentives around any kind of goal. So you can code the incentives and have some kind of governance rules, and that's what a DAO platform allows you to do, and a DAO itself would be a programmable, governable incentive machine. So the Colony network, let me get back to Colony. The Colony network is conceived to be a relatively flexible platform on which you can encode incentives and build your own DAOs of various types. But I'm not going to talk about that sort of general component layer today. I'm going to dive into more of what our current app is doing, and a more specific example, the Colony as a company, as a firm, the prime coordination tool in the economy. And I specifically mean the whole firm and not just the boardroom, which would be like having this multi-sig type DAO, which proposal for budget for the various departments, vote on it, stuff like that. I mean really the full operations of this firm or the community. So any large project you'll have, you'll want to divide it into smaller problems. When you launch a Colony, you have a structure called the root domain, but pretty soon you will be adding subdomains and sub-subdomains. Now this could be a conceptual breakdown of the problem you're tackling, or it could be an org chart of your organization, so that's up to you. Something that's not in our original white paper, but is in our current vision, is that each one of these could have a different decision-making procedure. So down here we might have a little work group, dev team, whatever, and there's one guy who's the team lead, and that guy can be the dictator, have the final say on all things that happen here and that stay here. They can create work, allocate the funds that are there, and evaluate things. It might be fair. Like if this were happening up at the top, the whole thing would be a dictatorship, but the fact that we can use it in each team, this is how we work as teams. Somebody can take the initiative, and it's totally okay. And it's only when disputes arise that the decision making goes up the tree. And so That's one possibility. In another domain, we might have this permissive, reputation-weighted funding queue mechanism that we described in the original white paper, in which the reputation system mediates the ability to direct funds. And now I've mentioned reputation. I should say the reputation system so far is live in the sense that any actions you take in the colony, you will earn reputation, but the reputation isn't being used yet because this particular module, permissions module, isn't active, but so it's half there. But since the vision of this is that reputation, you earn it for successfully receiving funds, and it also allows you to direct funds. It's sort of this feedback loop, so it means that the colony itself is a resource allocation mechanism, a process, mediated through this reputation system. That was the original vision, and this is a continuous process. So unlike boardroom-style DAO, there you'd have to take an action before something happens. This one will be continually moving, very dynamic, and only you have to take action to stop processes from happening. So we're envisioning this as a lot less bureaucratic and a lot more dynamic. So, right, that's where we might be at. So exactly, let me talk about further up. So maybe higher up here, we say, yeah, let's have a boardroom type thing up there to just decide how to give funds to the various bigger departments. And the problem is that having these proposals, coming up with a budget proposal is really hard, and reading a budget proposal and determining whether you agree with it is also really hard. It's a lot of cognitive load. And voter apathy is a problem in all DAOs, going back to the DAO, even though $100 million or more was at stake, the voter participation was tiny because people don't want to put in that much work. So we've come up with a system we described a few months ago, or last summer, I think, specifically how to come up with and agree on a budget. So we wrote this up under the name Budgetbox, and if you search for that, Budgetbox Colony, you'll find also the paper and the blog post. The insight was that instead of asking someone to evaluate a project and trying to determine how many funds they need, that's hard. What we'd ask instead is, who needs more resources, X or Y? So by giving people that comparison, it's a much easier question for us to answer. We're relational thinkers. It's much more fun. It's much more engaging. And the process works like this. By repeatedly asking over and over, A or B, A or C, D or F, whatever, like repeatedly asking these comparative questions, which are more engaging and fun to answer, we can still generate collectively what the overall colony thinks the budget of a department should be. We get a weighted ranking. So this allows for a distributed way of both coming up with the budget and agreeing on the budget that is a lot easier than trying to vote on proposals to a boardroom. So that's the budget box. That was not in the original white paper, but it's been, it's something we came up with afterwards. And you might, our vision is that you could use that in a domain, well, any domain, but in each domain you can choose its funding or its permission system. So it should be very modular. So that part is now described in the white paper because right now, look at that date, that's less than 24 hours ago, fresh for you guys, we have updated the white paper to describe all of these multi-permissioned systems and all our new ideas. And a special shout out to Daniel, who's done most of the work in updating this. This is great stuff. So that's out now. And so what's the status? What do we have? We have the Colony Network live on mainnet. That's great. We have the reputation system live. As I mentioned before, we're calculating reputations, we're updating them, but the reputation-weighted funding system is not yet live, so you can't actually use your reputation yet, but you have it. Right. Thirdly, we have developer resources website, which if you want to develop with Colony is a really nice resource. It sort of looks like this, has all the components and documentation for it. And lastly, we have an example DApp that is live. And I'll show you a bunch of screenshots of that in a moment. So the MVP, the minimal viable product, the app we have running right now. When you go to our website, colony.io, right up at the top it says go to app. That's where you'd click if you want to start your own colony. I also want to point out the community link just to the left. That's our Discord, which has been very active in this past month, and that's where, for onboarding, you'd come there, talk to us, and that's where a lot of the discussion happens. If you're following our blog, you would see that we have announced on the 5th of February, just a few weeks ago, the beta colony. This is a colony that is actively developing the Colony network and the Colony app. So if you don't want to start your own colony, you can join the beta colony and see what's there to do. It would look like this. So this is what the app looks like when you're in the beta colony. You can see our domains there. There's a root domain, there's BDSM, the business development, sales and marketing, of course. And then we've got product. And there's a bunch of tasks that you could pick up and start doing work, ranging from 15,000 beta colony tokens, BLNY, $200, 200 DAI, 500 DAI, 100 DAI for various developmental tasks. If we look in this business development subdomain, you can see there's tasks for writing, recording yourself, and explaining what you want to do with Colony, or even just sending a tweet. So that's as easy, the minimum engagement you need to do to start earning some BLNY today. Another tab in this app is these, this is the ones the tasks are really easy to do, so I'd encourage you to join in and you can actually complete some work, earn some reputation in beta. The other tab we have is the suggestions. This has been really nice, so anyone in the colony can come up with a suggestion of things we should improve about the app. And this has been really valuable to us, just to see what's coming back from the community and which ones are upvoted and what people are what are the pain points that we didn't really necessarily prioritize right. And there's a lot of them, and some have many upvotes, some don't. And the amazing thing is, so already February 25, so that's within 20 days, less than 3 weeks of launching this app, we have had someone come up with suggestions, and these suggestions have been upvoted. We accepted the suggestion and turned them into a task, funded the task, we received, somebody working on it received the PR, merged it into the app, and all within the first 3 weeks. So this is absolutely amazing. So that was a great achievement. It was great to see. And just the level of engagement with the community has been fun. It's been after 2 years of developing, finally seeing feedback, and this dynamic feedback has been really encouraging. So more examples of what's going on in the Colony network right now. There's SWASH-app.io, which I only really got to know about yesterday what they do. It's a really cool app, a browser add-on, that tracks all the data that you want to share with it. And me being the person who tries to stop sharing all data whenever I can and block all the trackers, I didn't really realize that this was a good idea. What they do, they are a data union. So the idea is you collectively track all the data that otherwise Google or Facebook might track, but now you can sell it on a decentralized marketplace and earn crypto for the same data. Instead of Facebook selling it, you can sell it yourself. So it's a very interesting project, and you can see here, they're also heavily into trying out our colony. There's tasks for testing the browser add-on. So this is what it would look like. There's a browser add-on here, and there's tasks for UI testing on the Firefox and Android and so on. It's nice to see them using it, so shout out to them. Great stuff. These are the overall stats. We've had over 200 colonies created in just the past month. So yeah, we launched in early February, so 1 month, 200 plus colonies, 500 accounts, 479 tasks, and 271 suggestions. And this is going up every day. So that's great. And on that note, I want to say, please join us. Come play with the app. Join us in our Discord. And hopefully you can use Colony for your communities as well. So thank you. And I'll take a question if there is one.
The Budgetbox mechanism that you talked about, can you comment on the similarity or differences between something like quadratic voting and other kind of governance?
Well, so the first important difference to quadratic voting that I'd point out on, where are we? I shouldn't have, there we go. So the way we've designed Budgetbox is that this weighting of or what people prefer is done by their reputation, the reputation they have earned. And that is a Sybil resistance mechanism where it doesn't matter how many accounts you have, it only matters how much reputation you've earned. Quadratic voting has a lot of nice features, but one of its biggest drawbacks in this space is that it counts individual users. So you'd have to have some kind of a strong identity mechanism to prevent people creating multiple accounts and then voting with multiple accounts, because that distorts the game, and here it does not. So that's a practical difference. Other than that, it's the ranking we get and the budget allocation is a little bit different than quadratic, and there's various dampening factors we can tweak to see, but it tries to achieve a similar goal, but with different mechanisms and different trade-offs.
I saw on Twitter there was a message. Somebody was asking for permission to build a bridge between Colony and Aragon. And I can see somewhat of a complementarity between the systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
How could you elaborate on what's your opinion on it and how you see that complementarity?
So Aragon and Colony could work very well together, and I could imagine having a colony set up where I have some domain higher up, which is an Aragon DAO, which gives, or even have this, you could have an Aragon organization which funds various colonies to work on its projects. So there's no reason you can't have both in the same organization. So yeah, definitely. I feel like we come at problems from a bit of a different angle. So there's some use cases where Aragon might be the right choice, and other things are easier on Colony. So one of the things we really worked on is making it easy and permissive, and to get the day-to-day activity done, where you don't want to have proposals and voting at every stage. So yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't have outsourced the decision-making on this higher domain to an Aragon DAO. And want to make it modular in that way, that there's hooks for different permission system at each level, and one of them could be call out to Aragon, sure. All right, well, thanks for coming, guys. I should leave it there.
Do you want to send it by mail?
Yeah, I can send it to
Okay,
Aron.
you can send it to, because we're having problems with the system, so we prefer just using the actual computer. So if you want the mail, where is it? There. It's s@6120.eu.
Can I share the role?
Yeah, give it the edition permission so that you can download it. And